Although there's no peace on the ground and now not even a hint of peace in the air. Talks between Israeli and Palestinian officials, considered stalled by some already, are now officially off the table after President Mahmoud Abbas suspended all contact with Israel. It's a defiant move brought on by 5 days of Israeli air and ground assaults and over 100 resulting deaths. In a moment, we'll hear from a representative of Hamas, the group in control of Gaza. But first is Jackie Rowland's report from the besieged strip.
And still they are burying their dead. In the centre of Gaza City, a massive funeral procession for the latest victims of the Israeli onslaught. The number of people killed in recent days has now passed 100. It's a grim toll.
They're united in their grief and in their anger. You can see all the different coloured Palestinian flags, Fatah, Hamas, Islamic Jihad, the Popular Front, all of them united in their absolute rejection of what's happening. Yes, there have been casualties, even deaths on the Israeli side, but nothing like the kind of carnage that we're witnessing here.
The Israelis let loose their forces on the northern towns of Jabalia and Shajaia, with orders to seek and destroy the rockets being fired from Gaza. But even after enduring 24 hours of heavy bombardment, Palestinian fighters are continuing to launch rockets against Israel.
The
Israelis are bombarding randomly. This is not brave or heroic. Anyone who has warplane can bomb a whole neighborhood, killing civilians as well as fighters. But this kind of operation only makes us stronger and more determined.
The emergency unit at Al-Shifa hospital is stretched to breaking point. Every bed is taken. New casualties have to be accommodated in other wards. Doctors don't know how they'll cope if the fighting continues.
God have mercy on us. This is my second son in the same hospital bed. Both were injured by the Israelis. 2 sons in 2 years.
For the severely wounded, a chance of deliverance. Egypt has opened the Rafah crossing point temporarily for the evacuation of badly burned patients and those needing amputations. They are beyond the help of hospitals in Gaza. The spectre of death on this scale has led to international calls for restraint. But Israel has sworn to defend its citizens, and the heavy bombardment of Gaza makes Palestinians determined to maintain their fight. There's little hope that these will be the last victims. Jackie Rowland, Al Jazeera, Gaza.
So the Palestinian president's suspended further talks with Israel, but there are increasing calls from the streets of Gaza that his Fatah party must now talk with Hamas. Noor Odeh now looks at the protest against Israel's use of force and the growing demands for Palestinian unity.
Anger exploding across the West Bank. Palestinians protest the escalating Israeli assault on Gaza, which has left over 100 dead and many more injured since Wednesday. A day of mourning has been declared in the occupied Palestinian territory, with youth burning tires and hurling stones at Israeli soldiers, who responded by firing tear gas, rubber-coated steel bullets and live rounds. In Hebron, the clashes were especially fierce. Medical sources confirmed 14-year-old Mohammed Masalme was killed by Israeli fire. Hospitals continue to receive injuries, many from live fire. The injuries are being described as moderate to severe. A blood drive has been organized in the West Bank in solidarity with Gaza, where medicine and other essential goods are in short supply.
They asked for blood bags yesterday, and we are planning to send them not only blood bags empty, but full with our blood as indication of our solidarity to the patients and our condemn to the Israeli aggression against our civilian in Gaza Strip.
Palestinian parliamentarian Mustafa al-Barghouti told me anger in the West Bank could bring back the First Intifada, known for its popular and non-violent nature.
What we are witnessing is the resumption of the First Intifada, the popular, non-violent, peaceful struggle but that is popular and mass in its nature against this Israeli occupation and this apartheid.
Across the West Bank, people have been hitting the street. Here in Ramallah, demonstrators lashed out at the international community for what they see as an inadequate response to intolerable bloodshed. Public demonstrations across the West Bank are just a taste of the increasing public pressure now being exerted on the Hamas and Fatah leaderships, calling on them to unite, end negotiations while blood is being shed, and talk about how to fix the Palestinian house. And it seems the Palestinian leadership is listening. President Abbas has now instructed his negotiating team to suspend all talks with Israel. But it doesn't seem this dramatic move will have an effect on Israel's decided course of action.
Nothing will prevent us from continuing activities to defend our residents. No one has the right to preach morals to the State of Israel for taking elementary steps of self-defense.
And as the situation continues to unravel politically and on the ground, it seems the public will not wait for politicians anymore. They want to be a deciding factor in what course of actions Palestinians take. Nuradi Al Jazeera, Ramallah.
Ahmed Youssef is an advisor to the Hamas leadership. He says it's time for Fatah and Hamas to unite and handle the attacks on Gaza together.
We have that call for a long time, more than 6-7 months. We're calling our brother in Fatah to reconcile our rift and solidify our unity and strengthening our struggle against the occupation. Unfortunately, the instruction coming from Ramallah to the people here in Gaza from Fatah not to communicate, not to talk to people of Hamas here. That's why the people in Fatah here is still taking side and not coming close to talk to us. We know that we have to handle this conflict together, to strengthening our unity and facing the occupation and aggression together. But unfortunately, the people in Ramallah, they try to exploit the situation and investment in division between West Bank and Gaza.
You could call it the biggest election in the world, and in physical size at least that would be true. But does size matter in Russia's presidential vote when many already think the decision's been made? President Vladimir Putin's at the end of his term. He's personally selected his successor, Dmitry Medvedev, who's in turn promised to appoint Putin as prime minister if he wins. A foregone conclusion? Jonah Hull has more from Moscow.
In Soviet times, Russians streamed to the polls to elect a single candidate. There was no choice then. There isn't a real one now.
I'm feeling good. Spring has come. Although it's raining, a new time has come, and that is nice.
Voting for a new president and the end of an era. This is an election with the appearance of democratic choice. 4 candidates, all very different. But for an estimated 70% of Russian voters, no doubt whatsoever who to vote for. A vote for Dmitry Medvedev, as most will be, is the next best thing to a vote for Vladimir Putin. The two men have already agreed that the outgoing Putin will share power as Medvedev's prime minister. The theory is that the loyal Medvedev will step aside later, allowing Putin to return as president once again. In a ballot that is less an election than a coronation, the only question is how many will bother to vote. The Kremlin wants a strong turnout to put the stamp of legitimacy on Medvedev's victory.
There is like a tacit contract. The government delivers and people know what is expected of them in terms of political participation, which is reduced in Russia to just casting ballots. They come to the polls and they vote the way the Kremlin wants them because the government fulfills its part of the contract and delivers.
Of course, Medvedev. He's already elected, so I am coming to vote for him.
The weekend is a traditional time for wedding parties. A looming presidential election wasn't going to get in the way, and nor would hangovers prevent these people from getting out to vote.
It will be a good present for us. Who are we going to vote for? For the President of Russia, of course. I'm not going to say who it will be.
No need. We already know. Jonah Hull, Al Jazeera, Moscow.